Yes or no? If a florist in Indiana refuses to serve a gay couple at their wedding, is that legal now in Indiana?
George, this is where this debate has gone with misinformation and frankly,
it's just a question, sir. Yes or no?
Well, there's been shameless rhetoric about my state and about this law and about its intention all over the internet. People are trying to make it about one particular issue.
Ticket punch for the first half of the Monday Arena. Welcome the competitors. She is a New York, New Jersey-based attorney, legal analyst, lifestyle expert. Welcome Elura Nanos. And he is the man who needs little introduction, save for professor of international business at the University of Maryland and one who spreads his knowledge around the various issues with no fear, Peter Morici. We thank you both for joining us here today.
Thank you.
Elura, I'm going to go ahead and start with you because Governor Pence says it's unfair for somebody like George Stephanopoulos to ask him a yes or a no question on this new legislation. And he says we are being mischaracterized. Matter of fact, we just had a morning talk show host from Indiana join us, and he said it's all lies. It has nothing to do with anything people may call discrimination. All right, which side do you fall on?
Yeah, I fall on the side that says that that's ridiculous. I think that those are the exact same arguments we heard during the 1950s and 1960s when so-called regulations were put in place in the South to disenfranchise African Americans. This is ridiculous. This law is a gruesome intersection between politics and law. And to say that Stephanopoulos' questions were mischaracterized is completely disingenuous.
Does this stand the test of a legal law?
Well, the problem, it probably does, and that's precisely the problem, because it is not the text of the law that's a problem in any way. The law is facially neutral, just like many other laws. There's a federal version that has very similar components that this Indiana state law does have. The Indiana law goes a bit broader, but the real problem is the impetus behind the law, the motivation for it, and the fact that it's being set against the backdrop of gay rights laws with respect to gay marriage. The purpose behind this law is to disenfranchise homosexuals. And any other characterization is just flat out wrong. So, and we really are going to see a problem in the fact that the law as it reads maybe looks okay, but it's the way that the law is going to be applied that really is the true problem here.
Peter, I guess what a lot of people have a problem with it, they're saying, wait a minute, this is the 20th state in the union to adopt a religious freedom restoration law, so why is everybody hammering away at Indiana?
Well, the question is whose freedoms are going to be impaired and where do you draw the line? The Constitution requires that the government give you things like due process, do not deny you religious freedom. It doesn't require me, for example, to hire a contractor or to not hire a contractor to work in my home because I don't like his faith. The real problem emerges is when people act as a group through conscious parallelism, as we say in antitrust law, and deny, say, blacks access to a community by individually acting. So you have, things like the Fair Housing Law. But I don't know what great travesty there is to the Constitution or anyone's individual rights if you don't want to sell a flower to a gay. That doesn't mean you should do that, or that say someone like me who teaches at a state university should refuse to have them in their classes or something like that. But an individual, at some level, an individual is entitled to think what they think and to act and buy and sell, where they think appropriate. The question is, where do you draw the line? And to characterize it in such stark terms and to compare it to the 1950s when we had Jim Crow laws is disingenuous, and it basically, frankly, offends me.
Well, let me ask you this. 60 seconds to go, then we'll take a break, come back. We got more to do here. But with 60 seconds, Peter, I throw it to you. What about those who say that, Peter, what about those who say that this would that a restaurant owner could refuse to serve a gay couple simply for wanting to have a meal?
Well, I think a restaurant owner ought to be able to refuse people. The real question is it the only restaurant in town? Is it a restaurant on the New York Thruway? I don't know where we draw the line on that. Obviously, the law has said they can't, federal law. But I don't know that I wholly agree with that. And I don't know that people are going to stay in business very long with those kinds of attitudes. After all, suppose I'm in a restaurant here in Alexandria, Virginia, which is a fairly progressive place, and I deny gay couples access. I think I would find that pretty quickly. Not only wasn't I serving gays, but I wasn't serving most of my neighbors.
And I think probably Saturday Night Live might have got it the best. It might have been the only real funny point in their show on Saturday night when they said there'll be a new sign outside some of these businesses closed for business, which might be the next thing.
What I really objected to in this segment When I weighed my case and said this is nuanced and vague, the other guest huffed at me.
Okay, well, hang on a sec. I'll tell you what, Peter, I'm going to let you go ahead and address that. That's fine. But I got to take a break only because of time. Good point out. We'll come back. Peter Morici has his moment to go ahead and answer back. Plus, we'll move on to Syria and other places as the arena continues. All right, welcome back to the MidPoint Arena. New York, New Jersey-based attorney, legal analyst Elura Nanos, and professor of international business at the University of Maryland, Peter Morici. Peter, I want you to go ahead and address this because I think you felt perhaps, maybe incorrectly, that Elura had huffed at you. What did you hear?
Remember, I can't see. I can't see her. I can only hear her. It was my impression that when I made my point, she huffed. And I think that this is a vague area. At some point, individuals should be able to act as they choose to act, even if it means choosing not to do business with some other people. The broader society will judge them as well. We can't reduce everything down to a set of rules. I mean, clearly, laws like the Fair Housing Act played an important role and continue to play an important role. However, I don't know that we need to compel people at every level to think in a certain way. I don't really want to live in Singapore, which is kind of like Disney World with the death penalty. I don't want to live in that kind of world.
All right, just wanted to make sure that we got it. And by the way, I just want to bring this out on this, Elura, you did not huff. We're good. Okay.
Well, thank you. I don't remember huffing.
Okay, that's good.
Not to say that I agree with everything.
What Peter's saying, though, is true. Sometimes you hear things on the other end. You can't always see. There you go. Made sure we moved it. Let's now move on here. Let's move overseas, if you will, to something else. The Syrian President Bashar al-Assad said on 60 Minutes Sunday, the accusations that the Syrian forces are targeting civilians, absolutely false. They could never win this kind of war if they were killing their own people. And here's what he had to say.
It's not traditional war. It's not about capturing land and gaining land. It's about winning the hearts and minds of the Syrians. We cannot win the hearts and minds of the Syrians while we are killing Syrians. We cannot sustain 4 years in that position as a government and me as president while the rest of the world, most of the world, the great powers and regional power are against me and my people against me. That's impossible. I mean, this logic has no leg to stand on.
Laura, let's get to this from Bashar al-Assad, winning the hearts and minds of Syrians. I don't know about you, but it kind of strikes me a little bit odd for a guy who's a dictator, and human rights is certainly not something that you think of first in Syria, winning hearts and minds of people. Look, do we trust this guy at all? I mean, that's really got to be the question here, and why should we trust him, Elura?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we should trust him. I don't think we can trust him. And I don't think that appearance helped him, that 60 Minutes appearance. He did not come across as someone who is trustworthy. And those words about winning the hearts and minds of the Syrians, while certainly true, really don't ring true when he says them, because that's obviously not what he's really looking to do. And I don't really think that his appearance convinced anyone that that's what he was doing. So I don't think it was very effective, despite the fact that underlying it may actually be some truth.
Peter, doesn't the United States have to basically come to the realization that they may have gotten rid of a couple of bad guys there, but this guy's not going anywhere. He is there to stay just as long as he wants, and no one's going to push him out.
Well, I think the alternative to him is ISIS, which is even worse. We missed the chance to get rid of him. We missed the chance to do something on ISIS. And, one of the other subjects we're going to address today is Iran, and that's one of the reasons the president is so desperate when it comes to Iran and so desperate to make a deal.
Peter, let us then go right to Iran. Last word, the Iranians are now saying, oh, wait a minute, we found something in the deal we didn't like. Now we don't want to send our nuclear material to Russia or any place else. Peter, isn't this what we knew what would happen? The president had to know this would happen. He is not that naive. The Iranians will drive it to the last minute, and they will basically just say it's not our fault.
He is that naive. You can't make a deal with him any more than Chamberlain could make a deal with Hitler. We just can't make a deal with Iran. Once we make a deal, if they start to backpedal, it's going to be very hard to get the sanctions reimposed, given the instincts of our European allies. After all, once the Germans are making money, it's very hard to get them to impose sanctions. Look at their record with regard to Russia. My feeling is that this is just a deal that can't be done, and that I don't particularly condone Netanyahu's tactics, or what Speaker Boehner did. I can understand their concern, and I think that in substance, if not in their tactics and strategy, that they are correct, and that this is another example of our flawed Middle East policy.
Elura, are we dealing then, as Peter would say, with a naive president who simply just doesn't get it?
Well, I don't know that that's the case. I'm not sure that that's a fair characterization. I mean, yes, this is a very complex issue. And yes, I think Iran is going to be and has always been very tough to deal with. On the other hand, I think that we as Americans really need to be careful in terms of what it is that we're expecting. I think every American would love nothing more than at every juncture for countries like Iran to just say, sure, we're going to give up our weapons, here you go. But I think that there is a way of looking at it to say that perhaps that there is some honesty to be looked at in Iran saying we're going to do this, but maybe not that.
Wait a minute. Did you just use the word honesty with Iran? I'm just curious. Did you use the word honesty in Iran in the same sentence?
Well, I do not. What I do not mean by that I think Iran is completely, honest and that we should believe everything they say. What I do say, though, is that certainly it would be clearly, patently dishonest for Iran to say, yes, we're going to just give up, anything nuclear at all. So, and my point only is that we really can't engage in any kind of a meaningful compromise about anything unless we are actually willing to compromise.
All right.
And that's just as a general, concept, as this goes forward.
Got to hold that as the last word. We're right up against the clock. Hang tight, Peter. I see you're waiting. So are we. 2 more for the White House and pictures that you'll never be able to get out of your mind once you've seen them. It's coming up next on The Arena. Lots to cover last segment of the MidPoint Arena. Let's first of all welcome back Elura Nanos. She's a New York, New Jersey-based lawyer. I don't know how I grew up in the area. How I cannot get it out, that's terrible. And professor of international business at the University of Maryland, Peter Morici joins us. Okay, we got some politics to rip through here. Let's see, Chuck Schumer is going to replace Harry Reid. All right, Peter, I throw this to you first. Does that really mean any change whatsoever, or is that worse?
Oh, Harry Reid was a very skilled majority leader. We might not have liked some of his policies or his points of view, and I think that Chuck Schumer is a particularly good choice, even though Mr. Schumer doesn't have much use for me.
Why does he? Wait a minute. Okay, you can't make that kind of a statement then without letting me ask. Why does he not have any use for you?
Well, we have fenced in the press and that sort of thing, and I have found some of his positions disingenuous at times, and said so, and written op-eds about him. And that kind of thing, and it's gotten a little hot at times. But I mean, he is very skilled, and I respect him, and I think he's quite able and will do a good job for the Democrats. That's bad news for the Republicans because he will do a good job for the Democrats.
All right, Elura, to you, quick 30 seconds on this before we move on.
Well, you know what? I have to support any New Yorker, especially one that went to Harvard. I think he'll do a good job, and I think that his financial expertise is going to serve him and the party very well.
All right, there you go, playing the New York card. Very nice. Okay, let's play the political card now. Here's 2 people coming in, and first to you, Elura. Let's see. We have Marco Rubio and Carly Fiorina, basically indicating that they're going to start running. Is it fair to say that they can run? Very intelligent people, but they will be running not necessarily for the White House eventually. I don't think they're going to get there.
I don't think they're going to get there either. I think Carly Fiorina, while I think that she's an impressive person, I had the privilege of meeting her and hearing her speak about 10 years ago. I think that her biggest claim to fame, of course, is that she ran HP for a long time. However, she would have a lot of explaining because she left that position on not the best terms. And then sort of her next big claim to fame was that she was involved with the McCain campaign and was instrumental in choosing Sarah Palin as a vice presidential running mate. So I think that she would have so much to do recovering from those 2 things that I think it would just harm her too much. With respect to Rubio,
no, go ahead,
I
please.
think with respect to Rubio, I think that the country will likely see him the way I personally see him, which is that he is intelligent, has things to offer, but just doesn't seem polished enough, just doesn't seem ready enough, and that his political agenda seems to smack a little too much of pandering to the right, and I think that it's just too much.
Peter, are we missing anything on either candidate's possibilities?
Well, I think Mr. Rubio has a future as a national politician. And it's conceivable that someday he could be vice president or president, if not in this round. I think Carly is basically running for a position like talk show host to get something like, a Fox deal or something like that from having become a personality in the primaries. She really hasn't accomplished anything. When she went to HP, she was a promising executive. At HP, she was pretty much a failure. And since then hasn't accomplished very much. So she's more of a talk show personality than a serious politician or an accomplished individual. Rubio, that's something else. You might not like his particular configuration of views at the moment, but he's a serious politician.
I think that's very true, too. I mean, I think he's got a future. Who knows? I don't think it's going to be 2016. All right, let's get your opinions on both of this. And I know, Elura, because you live in New York City, Peter, I know you follow national news. The New York Post, the front page of it has what I call the absolute note that we are living in the generation of stupid, because here they have the front page of the newspaper, and this has people taking selfies in front of the exploded building in the East Village, and they're smiling while they do it. And inside, we have more people who are taking selfies while there are two bodies potentially inside this. Come on, Elura, this is indeed the generation of stupid.
Well, I mean, I agree with what you mean by that. I do. And I think what we're seeing is as social media, particularly social media tied to graphics and pictures, just is everywhere and involved, everyone is involved with it all the time. What we're really seeing is bad decisions over and over. Now, young people historically have always made bad decisions. It's just that we've never seen digital evidence of those bad decisions minutes after it happens. So I don't know that today's generation is any worse than past generations. What I do know is that now we're seeing it play out on social media, and that's why we're having things like the Penn State fraternity scandal, why we're having these ridiculous pictures of someone looking happy in front of a tragic site.
Well, I think that's just it, too.
Judgment.
If I can interrupt you there for a second, and Peter, let me bring you in here as well, because that's, I think, what catches people. Sure, let's face it, everybody does stupid things when they're young, but you've got a fire in a building right behind you, and you have people smiling and enjoying it. This is just, it goes beyond the pale of just being stupid.
Well, these are terribly self-absorbed people. For them to do something like this, and what's very tragic for their futures is, we all did dumb things when we were kids, but they weren't up on the internet forever. This will be, and they will have to live with the consequences.
You'd have to agree with that one, Elura.
Exactly
That's
right.
The whole thing, because here it is.
I absolutely agree with that.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in that Village Idiots pictures. All I can say is I can mouth what a lot of my friends are saying. Here's hoping we learn all of their identities very soon and they get out there publicly. It would seem to be fitting. Last thing. We got about a minute and a half left. Peter, I'm going to let you take this one first. I know you're going to love me for this. This is in Ohio at the Barberton Pleasant Point Assisted Living Facility. The folks there made a calendar selling for $12. Peter, it's got a lot of nudity in it, and it's interesting. I'll say that.
Well, do you remember the movie Calendar Girls about a bunch of middle-aged British women? That's what we've got here, is a play on that. Although they managed to do that calendar in the movie in a tasteful way. I think distasteful behavior is offensive, or shouldn't be encouraged, at least. I certainly shouldn't make a law against it. No matter what your age is.
I was going to say free market. I hope he's not saying not free market here.
I said you shouldn't make a law against it, okay?
Well, I mean,
yeah.
you have
no,
to,
I know.
It's cool, it's nice, whatever. It's $12. They're doing something, and they're raising money for the Esther Ryan Shoe Fund. Provide shoes for kids who attend the Barberton schools. They donated $2,000 to the fund. So I guess if you're going to look at naked people, it's good to do it for kids in their shoes, Elura, I guess.
I mean, I can't say that I across the board have a problem with this. If it's working, particularly if the money's going someplace good, I really can't argue with it, despite the fact that it may be really in poor taste.
Let's put it this way. The people taking the pictures for the calendar are smarter than the people who took selfies at the fire. How's that one?
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
We got on that.
Exactly.
Peter Morici, Elura Nanos, I thank you so much for being here. We'll do it again real soon. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Arena intermission. Concession stands open. Mother Nature's about to deliver a few more surprises as we head for April's Fool. Jessica Reyes steps up to the National Weather Map and explains.
This Newsmax TV weather update is brought to you by eVoice. Simple, affordable, and a lot better. Hello and happy Monday. We'll start off by the Pacific coastline. Kicking things off for your week with daytime highs in the lower 60s for the most part. A lot hotter the further south you go. Yesterday in Las Vegas, daytime highs reached the mid-90s at 94 degrees, so feeling very summer-like through there. Not so much by the Great Lakes area, but a lot milder for today with mainly sunny skies in Bismarck. And speaking of showers and thunderstorms, this is very typical throughout this time of year by the Gulf of Mexico. We are dealing with that. A lot of that is extending into parts of the southeast, eastern portion of the country, especially by the Atlantic coastline. And then most of it is moving across the northeastern portion of the country for your Monday, where the further inland you go, we're getting mixed showers. So a little bit of rain and snow through there. Now for your Monday, here are some of your daytime highs.
I will admit, always looking towards the Rocky Mountains and seeing how much warmer it is, which means ski season is over. Horrible. Okay. Second half of the arena about to begin, featuring the ethics of server wiping, immigrant toolkits. And we just talked about some people who weren't too smart. Here's where the idiots are on spring break. That and so much more. We go to the second half of the arena right here on MidPoint.